Hey, security peeps, we are live with an edition of Breaking into Cybersecurity and Federal Career Connection with Caitlin Delmore today. I am Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter, helping awesome leaders hire great talent. I am here with the phenomenal Caitlin Delmore. And Caitlin, before we get started, it looks like LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube, and I know we're live on Twitter, but it looks like there's some issue with LinkedIn. So I want to make sure that that is buttoned up first.
No worries.
Try this. Oh, we're live now. There you go. I don't know what happened. So, Caitlin, thank you so much for being here today. We've been trying to schedule this for months now. So I'm super excited that you are here with us chatting about your background. You have done so many phenomenal things. Definitely, I would love for you to, give the audience an introduction of yourself first. And then I have some great questions because I've been watching some videos that you've done. So more so than us chatting before, I really want to get into some of the things that you talked about in the past. So take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been working in cybersecurity and really IT in general for about the past 10 years. So coming right out of college, I went straight into IT. However, my background really wasn't a technical degree. My major at George Mason University was actually in communications. And long story short, I discovered basically almost my senior year that I did not want to do a job in communications. Like, I loved communications as a science and what I could learn as it relates to others and about the way the world works. But when you looked at like the jobs at that time that were available, a lot of them were in kind of public relations, journalism, or HR. And after doing an internship, which I loved the people, it was a great organization, I just sort of realized I didn't have like a fiery passion for doing basically PR. And so I kind of panicked a little bit and decided to take a programming class after talking to my dad, because my parents were very clear they weren't going to help me in any way if I needed longer than 4 years to finish a degree. So my dad, who was a programmer himself growing up, he pushed me basically to try a programming class. And I discovered that it just came very naturally to me, that I felt like I was really good at it. I really understood the concepts, even though it was so out of my comfort zone. And so I decided last minute to add a minor, an IT minor. And I also had a business minor too at the time. So I did half a victory lap. I graduated in December of 2013 from George Mason University. And then I went straight into the IT realm. And I started as an IT help desk professional. And then I moved up from there into more of like a sysadmin kind of role. And then from there was able to pivot over into cybersecurity specifically. So I worked for different consulting companies. And I would be working for the DoD specifically. So I supported the Air Force, I supported the Navy. And then only recently, about a year ago, I've now pivoted into a pre-sales engineering role. So it's a really good middle ground of still staying technical, working with the cutting edge technologies that are coming out in cybersecurity, but still getting to work with the DoD customers that I do enjoy supporting because I love supporting the mission.
Well, that's an awesome entryway into your career, because I know you and I chatted, but I was online and I was watching as I was preparing for this and doing some research about your background. I saw a video that you had done for a middle school, and I was really excited when you talked about having that communications degree, having that communications background, because I always get questions around, people that I was on a call with a lady yesterday who specifically asked me, she wants to break into cybersecurity. And she said, this is my background. My degree is in English, I believe it was. Wow. And, but I'm not, and they go into, I'm not this, I'm not a coder, I'm not. And I said, well, you don't have to be.
Yeah.
Then I'm watching I'm listening to what your background and your degree. And I was like, I need to give this lady your information, like let her see your progression and what you've done with your career. So I'm really, really excited that, we have yet another person. And I was giving her that example, not of you, but just of saying that there's so many people who come from a liberal arts background that have different types of degrees. Everyone is not an engineer. Everyone is not a coder. Everyone is not, that's not what security is all about. Like it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Caitlin,
and to your point, I definitely agree with you. I think people get hung up because they look on LinkedIn and they look at the job recs and they have all of these qualifications listed out of wanting all of these degrees already, all of these certifications already. And what took me a long time to realize is no one meets all of those recs usually. So like most people are applying when they only meet about 60% of the qualifications that they're asking for. Right. So don't discount yourself. Let the process discount you, if you will. Put your best foot forward. And it is kind of a numbers game. I know right now it's a harder market than it was even a year ago. But yeah, I think it is a numbers game, honestly, with getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, I agree with you. What else would you say too, since this is, very much one of the parts of your background that I really enjoy is that you have that combination of both commercial and federal government. And so you talked about working with the Navy, but you're doing it through consulting, like you're not on site at the Navy. So talk to folks about, what that's like, the nuances, maybe the differences. And I have an opinion on where I think early career talent but a great place for them to go. But you go ahead and tell us more about, the differences and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just throw this out there. I grew up in the Northern Virginia area, and so it was very, very common for most people to go directly into working for the government or the DoD in some way. When I moved out to the West Coast about 7 years ago, I realized how much of a bubble kind of the Northern Virginia, DC area is, and like that's really not normal everywhere else. So it has been an interesting experience in that way. I don't think there's like any one right way to go about your career, if you will. I think for me, I realized I get a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment out of knowing what I'm doing is helping national security. It's helping our DoD just be more prepared and more effective against our near peer adversaries. And so for me, it's just been a very rewarding route to go. To your point earlier, though, I have worked for consulting companies where we were going on to client sites, so onto different Navy bases, sometimes multiple times a week, sometimes every day. Sometimes you're in a SCIF, which is like a secure room with no windows and no technology allowed in. So I've done it all, if you will. And I think each one has value, right? I think when you're on site a couple days a week, you're actually really expanding your network and building very meaningful connections. And it's very nice to know because you're so close basically to the issues that are happening. You feel very embedded with the customer. And so you do feel, I think, more impactful that way. In my current role now, I still feel impactful, but it's different. They're only going to bring me onto their site unless it's a very planned, structured thing that they need very specific help with. So that's kind of given me a nice balance of exploring, like now I get to work from home, I'm fully remote. And so it's creating a new balance for myself, if you will, instead of constantly having to be on site every single day. And I do think there's probably value to being somewhere in the middle, right? I think it can be very rewarding to be on site or in the office a couple times a week, and just there's a lot of power in like those conversations you might have that were unexpected, like not a planned meeting, just like water cooler conversations you get with senior leadership, or having that visibility, especially as a woman. It can just be helpful to you in your career. But that being said, I do enjoy the fact that I do have a lot of balance working remotely.
I agree with you, Caitlin. I think that when I I mean, when I was coming out of school, there was no remote.
Yes. Yeah.
It was in the office all day, every day.
Exactly.
And I really enjoyed the office. I mean, I completely understand, especially at this stage now with my current life, I wouldn't be able to be in the office every day. I just
Yeah.
can't do it.
I
But
think you
then
learn faster when you're on site too. So I don't
there's
know if I
so
were
much.
newer to the field or a career changer, like I would honestly maybe lean into a couple days on site if you can, because you're just going to learn faster and you're going to build relationships faster too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, especially when you're newer and you
Yeah.
don't have your legs yet, right? So you're learning. And if you can ping someone, now granted, you could be in an office and everybody's somewhere else and your team isn't even there. And that's different because then it's like, well, I could be home doing this instead of being in an office. But
Yeah.
you have, like, to your point, the visibility from senior leadership, the visibility from your peers, even just the camaraderie, everyone getting together, doing lunches together, doing happy hours together. I mean, probably the first year I was here when I moved to the Northern Virginia area, I probably was in a happy hour like every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's how you meet all
Yeah.
the people.
Networking. Yep.
Meet everybody, you go to lunch together, you hang out, you go to the happy hour, you learn so much, you learn the corporate culture. There's so much to be said for that. If those folks are part of the team, part of the, org. Like I
Yeah.
said, you get it if you're here and your peer if you're in the US and your peer is, somewhere internationally in India or something like that, it's just, might as well be at home.
Yep.
But from a I guess government perspective versus commercial,
Yeah.
where do you think a person who is trying to break in, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on which way they should go?
So, I mean, there's two schools of thought on it, right? So the government is going to be more structured with their requirements. So they're going to have very specific certifications that you need to have, things like that. Whereas commercial side, it could be a lot more, I guess, loose, if you will. So maybe those aren't hard requirements. They're just sort of nice to haves. The benefit, I think, of being fresh out of school or being a career changer and going the government route is if you meet that qualification, say you get that certification they want, which usually is Security Plus to get your foot in the door. CompTIA Security Plus is usually the first thing they want to see. If you know someone who maybe works at that company and can refer you, referrals go such a long way. It's like you already know you're insured that, like, I meet the basic qualifications for this role. Like, I have what you need to be staffed on a contract tomorrow. And so I think that matters. Sometimes what can be hard is for government work, it can require a clearance. And so if you're in a position where, you've never been in trouble, you're good with your money, you could get cleared very, very fast because they're just looking for usually big red flags with the clearance process. A lot of people that did time in the military and get out, they go straight into working for the government to continue keeping their clearance active. So that's another route as well. I wouldn't let the need to have a clearance deter you from applying to roles, because if they really want you, they will sponsor you for that clearance. I did not have a clearance coming out of school. I had a company that sponsored me for it. And the process took a while at that time because this was like freshly after that giant OPM hack that happened in 2013 or so, sometime around there. So it took a very long time. So by the time my clearance came through, a different company then had to hold it because I had already started my first job in cybersecurity specifically. But yeah, I just wouldn't let that deter you, like let people tell you no, like don't discount yourself because you feel like the things that you offer aren't enough or it's too much to ask for. Like, let them tell you no.
Yeah.
So I would always say, like, eligible to obtain clearance, because keep in mind too, to even get your foot in the door, you need to think about how recruiters are typing in basically their strings that they're looking up to sift through all the resumes online. So they're going to look for the word clearance. So even just writing the word eligible to obtain clearance, having the word clearance in your resume, it almost helps you to not get immediately nixed in a way. If they
That's
typed
such
in
a
that.
good tip.
Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, that helped me for sure.
I would say before we jump into some questions, and because I haven't been live in such a long time, I shout people out, which we're going to do, and I ask everyone where are you physically in the world right now. So Bam Adele, I think. Hi, April. April's here. She's my friend. Jaya has some good questions. Hi, Veronica. West is here. And hi, Ernest. Some of the people that we typically have seen, they're all saying hello, hello, hello. Please let us know where you are watching from today. So Jaya has a question. What certifications does the government look for right now? And the follow-up is, are there any specific certifications?
Yeah, so they actually have a whole breakout of certifications. I think it's DoD 85. Let me pull it up really quick. I think it's this 857001. So I can put this. Is there a chat or does that work?
Yes, if you want to
Yeah,
put it
I can put this in the chat. Here we go. But this is a good starting point for you because this is basically all contracts, the way that they're written, are going to point to this DoD memo, essentially, if it pulls up.
Oh, you know what?
It's really slow on my end. But yeah, so most contracts, the way they're written, they're going to want you to be at that IAT level 2. So Security Plus is kind of a smart place to start because it's a catch-all for a lot of contracts, and it's going to help you immediately meet those basic qualifications. Anything where you see like IAM, that's going to be more of a manager type of position. So most people don't need to pursue those certifications at least right away. Usually like IAT level 2 is enough to get your foot in the door. I don't think personally I've seen anyone ever ask for IAT level 1. It would maybe an internship or something, but even that is more rare to find these days, in my opinion, supporting the government. So yeah, IAT level 2 is definitely the smarter route. And I personally have taken Security Plus. I think it's a very easy one to start with because it's kind of a catch-all over everything. And there is free training you can do. Professor Messer has free trainings available online and videos, and he helped me when I was passing that. And then, of course, you can just do the training too through CompTIA. With these types of certs, getting practice test questions in, I think, is going to be the most useful in the end because it's learning really how to take the test. Because a lot of times it's situational and they want you to pick the best answer. So it's not very like, what's the definition of this? You know, it's always usually pretty situational.
Right. And your answer is like the exact answer that I gave the lady yesterday in regards to just certifications as a whole. She's like, what certification should I get? What, where should I begin? It's almost like, where should I begin? I'm trying to do this. I'm going to pivot. Where do I start? And I always tell people start with Security Plus because from a recruitment standpoint, when I have done recruitment in the government space or for a government contractor and they're looking for a cert, they don't typically at that level, like you said, which I don't know what IAT stands for.
It's like information assurance technician, I think.
Technician, okay. I figured it was information assurance something, but information assurance. And then, so usually when it's a non-management role or relatively entry level, it is a certification. Cert, not a specific. Sometimes it's not specific, or they'll say, this cert, one of these, and almost always Security Plus is a part of that.
Yeah.
So
I will say commercial, in my opinion, they don't tend to require certs as much, but they're looking for a very specific skill that you have that is going to directly feed back to the business. So right now, if you were trying to break into the commercial world, you could probably get by going for a cloud security role if you maybe had even just a few like cloud security like certs, which are cheaper. They take less time to study for. but I work with people who have 0 certs. So it's not a deal breaker in the commercial world if you don't have certs. But I think the government lays out like their expectations in such a way that it's very helpful when it's very overwhelming, to get your foot in the door. It's very helpful when all of the expectations are clearly laid out, and
Right.
as long as I do this, I am eligible to apply for these roles and be staffed immediately.
Yeah, I agree. And Jaya says, thank you so much for the
Yeah.
answer. Really appreciate it. You're welcome, Jaya. So when I was chatting yesterday, I said pretty much that what I liked about the government opportunities is that in my experience with commercial
Yeah.
and the Fortune 500 or whatever, they're typically looking for us, like you said, a specific skill set.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need the certifications per se, but they're looking for people to hit the ground running most of the time.
Yeah.
And the entry level roles become more few and far between. But in the government space, there's just more opportunity to get in at an entry level. And that Security Plus component comes in really handy because it says, well, I do have this cert, I have this thing. So Jaya is saying here, and I'm going to jump into a couple other comments over here and where people are calling in from. Jaya says she has the CISA Plus. Is that how you?
Okay, yeah, that's through CompTIA. That's a great cert to have. And so the way that it's all structured within the DoD, I mean, Security Plus is very, very helpful to have. I think that's like the cybersecurity. I think it's the solutions architect one. That's a great cert to have, as long as you have something that falls in the IAT level 2 umbrella, because there's a few certs that fall under that. You check the box, if that makes sense, because that's what they're really looking for, is the way that these contracts are written. There's no leeway really to be outside the box, if you will. And sometimes you can negotiate with these companies, which I've done before. When I had 0 certifications, I said, within 6 months, I will pass Security Plus. And I had to do that, and I did. But that was enough to get me hired. So there is some wiggle room, just because in theory, right, it might take you 2 to 3 months to even get on a contract unless they have a spot, like a billet open right away for an open role. So a lot of times they are more flexible with all of that.
Yep. Okay, more questions. So this is Ernest. So there's a lot of folks in Texas. Bamadel, I think I'm saying that correctly, is in Texas. Ernest is from Houston, Texas. So Ernest's question, which I tend to get this often as well. It's been since 2012 with my bachelor's in IT security, and I'm very discouraged at this point. He's from Houston. He does have a Security Plus. He shared that. So that's all we know right now.
Okay. I mean, my only, recommendations in that situation, as long as your Security Plus is still active, I would find ways to get involved in the community. So when I moved from the DC area out to San Diego, I joined AFCEA International. They would definitely have chapters, I feel like, in Texas, but it might be closer to Austin. But I would look into that. They're a big one. They're the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association. And that's going to be not only, that's if you want to work in the DoD, this is a recommendation. They are a huge professional affiliation where you would have the ability to expand your network greatly. And they all have local chapters. So I would just look into that. I also joined a group called Women in Defense, which used to be a part of NDIA, but now it's its own separate entity. NDIA is like the National Defense Industrial Association. So again, these are going to be not only the DoD, but all of the contracting companies. They're all going to be members of this, just finding ways to expand your circle. And then I also, a few years ago during COVID, worked with a lady in San Diego who's actually a civilian in the Navy. We started a Women in Cybersecurity chapter. And so that was helpful. So just getting out of the normal avenues and doing what you can to meet people is going to be really impactful, because in my opinion, a lot of these companies are getting so many applications a day that the only way to really stand out is to have a referral. So I don't care if you met someone for like 5 minutes at a happy hour, like I have no shame. I will add them on LinkedIn, because you just never know later in life when you might want to reach out for a referral or when they might reach out to you for a referral. So I mean, I would capitalize on any networking you can in that situation.
I'm with you. That's one of my go-tos too. Definitely getting involved in the community, in the cybersecurity community, you volunteering, participating in these organizations, because you're going to meet all the people in the organizations that you potentially want to work in. And instead of putting your resume in the black hole, as everyone calls it, and I air quote black hole, the applicant tracking system, or trying to submit with hundreds of other people, then somebody actually knows you. And to your point, Caitlin, can refer you in. And for all the newbies out there, when someone refers you, a lot of companies give them a referral bonus.
Yeah.
So if they think that you're going to be a good fit and a good candidate, not only is it great for the team and great for the company, it's great for the individual that is referring you to get a couple $1,000 because they, or whatever the numbers are now, because they referred in a good talent, a talented person into the organization. So
one other thing I'll say on that, I used to make this mistake where I would just have one resume, and it was a really good resume. I worked really hard on it, but I'd use that same resume to apply to different jobs. And I have now learned it's fine to have one like base copy of your resume, but with each job rec that you're applying to, you need to be tailoring that resume like word for word down to like the specific word choice, in my opinion, of the recs you're seeing, like the qualifications you're seeing in that specific rec. So that will help because you're going to match word for word to what they're looking for using their same word choice. And that, in my opinion, you will get a much higher chance, I think, of getting called back, or at least for an initial like interview from a recruiter.
Gotcha. I have had mixed. I have mixed. Well, what I tell people is this: if you can keep track of that, that's great. Because I know some of the folks we've had on this have done so many interviews and have applied to so many jobs that what makes me nervous about that approach, which I think is fantastic, like it definitely works if you really can keep track of which resume you sent where. So that's definitely a point. But yes, to get it to the top and take those keywords and like plug them in and make sure, we don't want anyone to lie on their resume. But
no, it's just like rewording. So it's still, you're still capturing the intent of what you initially had put, but now you're using like the performance metrics they want to see or something.
Right. Precisely. No, I agree with you 100% on that. This is zooming by because there's so many questions. So Veronica West, she has a bachelor's in cybersecurity. We're going to pull her question up next. And she is in Texas as well. A lot going on in Texas today. I'm physically in Texas. I have a security plus and a network plus and 20 plus years in IT. I have had a clearance since 2009 and have been actually working in cybersecurity since February 2013. So about 10 and a half years. I do have a USA.gov account and she has applied, but still nothing. What more can she do? That's a great question, Veronica.
Yeah, in that position, I would maybe, if you've picked out companies that you'd want to work for, and this might be an aggressive approach, but I would go on LinkedIn and pull out some recruiters and ask just for a few minutes of their time. And you could even get their feedback based off your resume, and your experience, if where they think the gap is, because even that has opened the door for me before, where I've done that with someone and then that recruiter actually ended up referring me for a different role that he wasn't managing like a few months later. So I guess I would be a little more aggressive with just reaching out to some recruiters and just sort of seeing what they think, in their opinion, if you already know kind of what roles you want and what companies you'd want to work for.
Well, it looks like she's saying here USA.gov. So that's probably the federal government, or I guess.
Yeah, they have that. I've also seen clearance jobs. In my opinion, LinkedIn really, really worked for me when I, about a year ago, pivoted to a new role. That was a really easy way to sort of see who I already knew that worked at those companies. Really beefing up my LinkedIn, I think, really helped me the most. And I did personally pay for LinkedIn Premium at that time. And I did find it useful because it did show me where I stack against people that have applied. And then there were like salary ranges. Some states now do offer the salaries now, whereas they weren't a year ago. But I personally thought in that period where I was actively looking that it was a helpful investment to make and just fully using LinkedIn helped me most.
Yeah. Well, Veronica says, I never thought about that. Thank you. She also says she's also on clearance jobs.
Okay.
So, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, I have time. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, Bamideli, I believe. I hope I'm not butchering your name. So says, in transitioning and navigating through cybersecurity, what will be your recommendation in earning a cybersecurity certificate and undergoing cybersecurity programs and training? I know you answered a little bit of that already.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think Security Plus is a safe way to go. I do see a lot of people wondering if they need a bachelor's in cybersecurity. I'm still going to argue no. I know it's a different world now than it was 10 years ago, but I see it all the time where people don't have that background. They either just get a bunch of certifications, which that's the path I took. I got a bunch of certifications. I did get my CSSP, and now I'm in grad school right now as well. So it's like I almost did it the opposite way. I didn't front load education. It's like I'm doing it as I go via certifications. And I still think that that is a path that people can take. That being said, there's no harm like in doing the bachelor's route, but I wouldn't hold yourself back. You know, if you already have a bachelor's in something else, don't feel like you now have to have a bachelor's in cybersecurity to be eligible for these jobs that are out there.
Yeah. I mean, Bamideli has a lot of certifications behind his name, so he must be asking for someone else.
True, yeah, you're CSP.
It's a lot. And Veronica says she agrees with you. A bachelor's in cybersecurity is not necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm with you all that it's not necessary. Bachelor's, so, there's been a lot of discussion around college degree versus no college degree at all.
Yeah.
Which is its own, set of conversations. But in regards to your major, having a bachelor's with a in cybersecurity is definitely not necessary to get a role in security.
Yeah.
So, okay, Caitlin, I want to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate everything that you've said so far, and, sharing your insights and sharing your, everything that you've been through to get to where you are has been fantastic. If you had one final piece of advice that you wanted to give folks who were looking to either break into the federal government, or break into the commercial space, or break into cybersecurity as a whole, what would you tell them?
Don't count yourself out, but also find a way to stand out if you can. So in my opinion, getting as connected to the community as you can, finding a professional affiliation, and just meeting people that way, that will be, I think, the most impactful way to meeting people that can help you in your career, whether it's through mentorship or whether it's through directly being able to refer you to open roles. That's the way you're really going to stand out, because right now, it's just hard online to stand out alone. So whatever you can do to meet people in person and build your community up, that will really help you.
Excellent, excellent advice. Folks, we haven't done one of these in a long, long time, so I'm happy to be doing them again. Please share share questions that you would like to have answered on these shows, and we'll continue to bring on more cybersecurity professionals just like Caitlin to come on and share their experiences and answer some questions. So thank you all for the awesome questions that you always provide. Thank you for being an awesome audience. It keeps it lively and moving and going. So we really appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you all again when we have the next live stream.
Thank
So
you.
everyone take care. Bye-bye, Caitlin.
Bye. Thank you.